Hey guys, and welcome back to Brexit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, last week Boris Johnson gave his final farewell Prime Minister's questions. And he went up there and he obviously mentioned, the vaccine rollout, but didn't mention the 200,000 people that are dead because of COVID, of course. And, he also mentioned, how he's been standing up to Putin. And he also mentioned he got Brexit done. And he also mentioned, I think that's about it, right? Because obviously we haven't got 40 hospitals that are being built at the moment. And you say, well, where's the 40 hospitals, right? Or the new 20,000 police officers? Where's all of that? All of those big promises that you come in making, but he was still given a complete standing ovation by the Tories, and all of the Labour and Theresa May, right, did not cheer or clap. They sat on their hands. Well, Theresa May got up halfway in between, but she still didn't clap. She just stood there. She just stood there with her hands, with her arms folded. I think Labour, and because I see them. There was questioning someone. I can't remember who it was, but there was questioning someone about this the other day. Yeah, and it was what's his name? Kevin Maguire. Works on the, I think he works on the Mirror or something like that. Right. So they were saying to him, well, would you have clapped if you was there? And he said no. Right, so they went on to start speaking about Tony Blair, and he said, "Well, no, I wouldn't have clapped." He said, "Well," they said to him, "Well, when Tony Blair left, the and Gordon Brown, the Conservatives, and Labour, gave him a standing ovation when they left, right?" And Kevin Maguire said, "Well, I wouldn't have clapped Tony Blair in the same way I wouldn't have clapped Tony Blair. The only thing Tony Blair should be clapped to is in irons and taken to the Hague. That's the only place he should be, right? For them to cheer Boris Johnson out, right? And remember, right, this is while, right, people's houses was burning down because of the heat last week. Remember, that was last week Tuesday, right? We had a big fire that was just around the corner from me, right? I think they lost about 15 houses around there. And a load of forest burnt down. And that's because it's a big one. Why that one's gone countrywide. But these things was happening all over the country because this country is no way at all set up for any type of weather. It's not set up for the snow, right? And it's not set up for heavy rain, right? And it's not set up, right, for excessive heat. So you say, well, what the hell, right, have these governments been doing all these years? I'll tell you what they've been doing. They've been praising leaders that are complete crap at their job. Right? Because we're in this problem because we've had leaders, right, that are complete shit at their job. And look, Boris Johnson gets a round of applause, a standing ovation from the Tories. Boris Johnson, right, he's left in disgrace. Right? Do you know any other job, right, where you can leave in disgrace, right, and people are holding parties for you, people are applauding you on the way out, but you've left in disgrace? You haven't left because you're retiring, right? You're retiring after 30 years and you've done terrific service, or you're retiring after or you're leaving after 2 years after doing terrific service. No. He's leaving in complete disgrace, right? Could you imagine, like, a police officer leaving, like, let's say the Met, and leaving in disgrace, and next thing, right, the police officers all standing out there, giving them, clapping them all the way out the station. No, what would happen after their disciplinary, right? When they leave the police station on that day, their ass wouldn't ever go back there, because they would have cleared out their locker a long time ago, so they wouldn't need to go back there because they've left in disgrace. Right? It's only, right, in, right, what is said to be, right, one of the greatest jobs in the world, Because remember, it's only, it's, you got billionaires who are crying out to do the jobs of politicians, right? The jobs of politicians, right, which could not pay a billionaire's wages. So you say, well, why does someone so wealthy want to be a politician? It's all about the power. Right? And these guys abuse their power, because when you're chairing Boris Johnson, right, who has left in disgrace, right, after having numerous parties in Downing Street, right, look at the state of everything in this country, right? Yes, we had a pandemic, right, but this now is not the effects of the pandemic. What's happening in this country now, right? What Boris Johnson has left is not the effects of the pandemic. This is the effects of Brexit. That's what this is the effects of, right? And Brexit, right, has destroyed this country. Right? And all of that is down to Boris Johnson and all those people you see that was cheering Boris Johnson out. A man who's a complete and utter charlatan, loser, right? A complete incompetent, right? And these people are cheering this man out. And you think to yourselves, seriously? I've had to listen to James Not So Cleverly on the radio this morning, right? And speaking about Boris Johnson, how Boris Johnson done a great job as London mayor, and let me tell you, no, he didn't. Right? He's the worst London mayor, right? Sadiq Khan's not much better, right? Ken Livingstone wasn't too good either, right? So we haven't really had any real decent London mayors anyway. Right? Ken Livingstone could have been, right, but he's the one who introduced the congestion charge. Right? And you go up there, right, and find out if that's working, if the congestion charge is working, because there's still just the same amount of cars down there. So the congestion charge is not working, the ULEZ is not working. The only way the ULEZ is working, right, is by putting more money into the government's pocket, because you've got people down there, right, who can't afford to go and buy a new vehicle to drive. I know a guy, right, who he works in the same industry as me, right. Now he uses a hire van because he lives in London itself. So unless he can afford to buy, to get the money to buy himself a new van that's ULEZ friendly, right? He's been hiring a van for a couple of years now because of the ULEZ, right? So he was saying to me the other day, he reckons it's cost him 70 grand, right, hiring these vans, right? But obviously the vans ULEZ friendly, so he can drive, so he can just so he looks at it in that way that what, because he's saving himself that money every week. If he had if he had a van that you couldn't use in the zone, you just have to pay your £12.50 a day or whatever the hell it is, right? Then he's worked out, it's slightly cheaper than me having that van. So he's chose to go down that route. Obviously all his his tax and insurance and MOT, and if the van breaks down, he doesn't have to worry about it. They just send him out a new van and all them things there. So you see, things like the ULEZ is affecting the working classes more than anybody else, because all these rich people that like Sadiq Khan himself, these things wouldn't affect them. ULEZ is not going to affect them. How's it going to affect them? It's not going to affect them at all. Right? So all of these people, they're all working against our interest. And you see, as I said, James Not So Cleverly was on this morning doing the rounds, because obviously the Tories have to send someone out every morning to do the rounds, and that person has to go out and soil themselves or embarrass themselves in public on a daily basis. And it's always happening. They're always doing it. It's every single day. But today it was James Not So Cleverly. Now, now he's back in Liz Truss, right? And I can remember, what was it, last year when they brought in a new national health tax, right? And he was backing it. Oh yes, well needed. It's something that we all need, right? Now Liz Truss wants to come in and say, "Oh, I'm going to cut that tax," and James Cleverly's on this morning soiling himself, saying, "Oh, well, it's much better to have people have all the money that they earn in their own pocket." I don't understand, right, how it is that these are the people that are running this country. don't get it at all. You know, I just think it's really, 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 it's very, very sad to think that these are the people that is running this country, right? People who they'll say one thing to you one day, and then the next day they'll say something completely different. Right? And you know, people still look at these people and say, yeah, these are the best people to run this country. Those very people who are cheering Boris Johnson, a man who was left in disgrace, are the best people to run this country, this Brexit Britain. Wow. And welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages you sent me, and a special thanks to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go through all your messages, I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all your messages for definite. You know, I done what last week. I only done one video, and so this video, like today's Monday, so this is going to be my last one for well, this is my last one of the season. That's going to be the last one for the summer. I might pop up and do one of my, I might pop up and do like a couple of minutes every now and again, if you know, it just depends on what happens. But you know, as I said, just with these people and this politics, I mean, it really is just like you're looking at these people and think to yourself, how does this, how have we got to a stage where we have got right Rishi Sunak right v Liz Truss? These are the best two people that we could put in from the actually no, because remember, right, it's only like it's only the Tory MPs that have put these two up to be the Prime Minister. So we have to say that if the like the big finger from the National Lottery, if the big finger come down and said you are going to be the Prime Minister, do you think that it would go anywhere near Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak? I mean, pencil neck and stick insect. Do you think it would go right? Because I don't think it would, right? And I think that I personally think right that Rishi Sunak has got a real problem here. That's my personal opinion of it. Rishi Sunak right has got absolutely no chance. Now, I mean, I would take the stick insect for the, to be the first prime minister of colour in this country. I would even take the stick insect to do that. Do you know what I mean? But right, once they really start, over the summer, right, because you're going to see over the summer who the newspapers are going with, right? And I think they're going to go with Liz Truss, and which means this is what this means, going with Liz Truss. It means that we retain Nadine Dorries, right, and Jacob Rees-Mogg, right, and the woman who looks like she was born divorced, Therese Coffey, right. So all of those, you could imagine, all of those idiots, right, are still going to get good posts with Liz Truss, because that's the way. I'm sure that's the way it's heading. I can't see it going any other way, because the Tories thought the best thing we could do is give them a boy, brown boy, continuity Boris Johnson, and a girl, continuity Boris Johnson. Right? Even though Rishi Sunak, is attacking Liz Truss, he's attacking her policies all over the place. Oh, she's going to be reckless with the with the economy. We're reckless, and say, well, you're the Chancellor, right? You do realise that you are the Chancellor, right? And you should not, you as a person should never ever use the word reckless, right? That's one thing Rishi Sunak should not do, is use the word reckless, because if you look for the word reckless, right, you would look at, there'd be a picture of Rishi Sunak in every single dictionary in the world, because no one has been more reckless with our money. Right, and what you got to remember, is that because people always say, oh well, he's so rich, so he's good with money. He's a motherfucking gambler. Okay, because that's what all the stocks and shares is. It's just fucking gambling. And remember, he bet against this country, right? And that's when he made his major money. When he bet against this country, right? Over the Brexit thing. So that's when he made his. That's when he made his money, and that's a person who a lot of the Tories are looking and saying, yeah, well, he would be. But then, I'm just thinking to myself, have these guys banged their head or something? Because do they not realise he's Asian? I'm looking at myself. He's Asian, right? And there's so much of them backing him. I'm like, well, you do realise he's brown. He's an Asian. Right? His wife's from India, pal. Right? How much chance do you really think that he's got? But in saying that, if there's anybody in the world, if you looked for someone in the world, right, anywhere in the world, you'd be looking at Liz Truss, who could fuck it up. Liz Truss is a person, right, who could make so many stupid mistakes that she actually ends up putting the fucking brown guy in there by mistake, because Liz Truss is really that thick. I remember she turns on a sixpence, right? So now you're going to have the ERG, yeah, really pressing Liz Truss because that's who's backing her. The ERG are the people that are backing her. So they're really, so obviously these guys have got some real crazy ideas. The ERG, I mean, because you can tell that, right? That they've got some real crazy ideas because of, if you look at Dover, right, or Folkestone, right, or any of our airports. Look over the weekend, because I think things might have calmed down now because people needed to get away, but some people was queuing for 20 hours. And these guys they're blaming the French and say, well, it's all the French's fault. Right? It's all their fault. Right? They've got 12 booths there and only 4 people manning them. You say so. You decided, right, that you wanted to impose economic harm upon yourself by erecting barriers in front of you, right? So, looking so fly, looking like wealth. So I had to call the paparazzi upon myself. That's Jay-Z. We, right, are so motherfucking exceptional that we had to impose economic sanctions upon ourselves. I mean, who does that? Who imposes economic sanctions upon themselves? Who does that? I mean, who says, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and empty my bank account, right, and I'm going to just go and just throw the money on the street, right, £300,000. And I say, well, but you haven't got a job, you're retired, so you're going to impose like real hurt upon yourself, mate. I don't care. That's what I'm going to do. I mean, if someone said that to you, and they said to you, and furthermore, I'm going to lock myself in my cellar forever, you'd say, what? Wouldn't you say to them, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you take £300,000 out of your bank and just throw it on the street, right? And then weld yourself into your cellar so you can't get back out? That's taking away your freedom of movement, by the way. I mean, why would you do that? Well, we can understand why Jay-Z would say, you know what, he's looking so fly, looking like wealth, I have to call the paparazzi upon myself. You can understand, because he's looking, well, why is no one calling the paparazzi upon me? I'm going to do it myself. So we're saying, you know what, there's no one around the world, right, who can impose economic sanctions on us, right? So we're going to do it to our motherfucking self. We're going to impose economic sanctions upon ourselves, right? And then we're going to blame the French, right? When our airports and Dover, right? Remember when, who was it? Dominic's stupid ass idiot Rob said he didn't realise, right, how important Dover was to this country. I'm speechless. That's what that is. Have you ever heard of the 1313 legislation? I'm going to tell you about it one day. This, right, is annoying. This is annoying. Right? We're looking at Dover now. Dover is fucked. Right? 20 hours. Right? And they're saying, oh, well, we've got what sovereignty? The French have got all our sovereignty because they can determine, right, how long those queues are going to be at Dover. And when we've got all of our politicians, right, thinking it's okay to turn around and say to the French, oh, well, it's all your fault. Everything that's going on is your fault. So they say, well, okay, we know what we're going to do. Next time we're going to have 2 people manning the borders. The borders that's only got 12 people manning it because you decided, you know what, we don't want to just like, you know, be driving in our cars and just flash our passport like that. Because that's all we had to do before. Right? In fact, right, I've been into the EU so many times, right, and not even used my passport. Right? And you know, I've taken it every time, right, but I have never been challenged for it. Just used to go. Right, just go. Well, you know, you're coming from the UK. Just go. Get on your flight and go. When you're coming back, same thing. They just let you go through that. They don't even tell you. They don't even say, can I see your passport? Just go through that gate. Don't talk to me. Go through that gate. It's an E-gate. And now we're saying, oh, well, I heard our politicians said, oh, well, why can't the French open up the E-gates for us? Because you said you wanted your passports to be fucking, your blue passports, or your blue passports, right, that's made in fucking Europe. You want those passports to be stamped. And now they have to stamp them, right? Because they have to make sure that you're not abusing the system and going in and out of Europe, right? You know, more than 90 days in the last 100 days. They've got to make sure that their system, right, you know, stands up. And right, our politicians are like, well, why are they protecting their borders? Say, what? Are you fucking serious? You go on about protection of borders all this time, but you want other people's borders to be porous. But your borders must be as tight as a nun's you know what. Are you serious? Right? These are the politicians, right, that we've got in this country, and what they're doing is they're winding up the French, right? Because you know what, it keeps their base happy because their base look at that and say, oh yeah, look at how we're sticking it to Frenchie. Look at us, we're sticking it to Frenchie. Even though we're making ourselves look like international fucking idiots, we're sticking it to the fucking French, right? We've murdered our fucking pound. It's slaughtered, but you know what? We're sticking it to the fucking French. Right? We've got 20 hours fucking wait at Dover, but you know what? We're sticking it to the fucking French. And the French are like, that's correct. You're sticking it to us. We can see that. That's why you're queued up at Dover. 20 miles of fucking queues. Because you're sticking it to us. Of course you are. Right? Whereas when their citizens come here, they're still using the fucking E-gates. So, what you've done, right, is you've set yourself up as the only people who can do minimum wage jobs, right, and, right, your freedom of movement is fucked compared to theirs. Right? Because you've got to remember this, right? Imagine now, right, if we say, you know what, we're going to tighten up rules on our side. Then the French are more in the position where they just say, you know, we're going to have one person on that booth now. Okay? One person. Then you've got fucking 60 miles of queues. Right through, right, you know, Kent that voted 62 motherfucking percent. 62%. Right, for Brexit. And now they've got piles of shit and bottles of piss in their hedges. How would you like that in your hedge? Shit and piss. I mean, where else are that guys going to go? Because you know already that this country, they ain't setting up no infrastructure. You got people standing outside their fucking cars in the fucking burning heat over the weekend, right? You know, and not moving. You know, moving less than a mile in 6 hours, trying to get through Dover or Folkestone. or any of the other ports. Right? Airports, right? You've still got seas of baggages, right, that haven't been picked up, haven't been claimed. Why would a country, right, impose economic harm upon itself? I mean, you have to be some exceptional motherfucker to go and do that. Really, innit? Just, just exceptional. Could you imagine Gareth Bale saying, "Now, you know what? I'm going to go and join one of the clubs in the I'm going to go and join a non-league club and bring them right up to the Premiership." You'd be like, good fucking luck with that. Because you know what? You've got players around you, right, that are not capable of doing that. Okay? You're capable of doing that, but the other players around you are not. Right? So why would you go and impose that on yourself, Gareth? Why would you do that? Only because he's Welsh. And there's a lot of Welsh people who voted for Brexit. But, seriously, I despair. That's what I do. That's the right word. I despair, right? Because I look at the people in this country and I say, you people, there's something wrong with you. You have a screw loose. Not only, right, have you voted, right, for idiots my whole life, all idiots, right? Oh, well, I can remember back, politicians with nostalgia, obviously, because none of this lot, right, stand anywhere near like Lady Thatcher or even John Major, right, or Robin Cook, John Smith. None of these people come anywhere close, right? You should look at these people and say, something, you're so far away from the big beast of politicians that we used to have. You go back to big names like William Whitelaw. All these people, some of these was Tory conservatives, but the difference is, right, is they seem to be people with real honour and and commitment and passion for the politics, right? These guys, these politicians are nowadays. It's like celebrity. Right, for people who look like Therese Coffey and Michael, right, really bad hair fabricant. Celebrity for those. Let's move over to America because I'm sure things are better over there. Steve Bannon has blamed the City of London and the Financial Times for his prosecution. But this was before he was found guilty, because he's been found guilty, right, of avoiding speaking to Congress. And they say, well, because when they ask you to come and speak to them, right, it's a summons, right? So that's what it says, right? And if you don't do it, right, then, right, you break the summons, then you have to go to court and answer for it. Now he went not guilty, so that immediately gives him an immediate 30 days in prison. His sentence is not till October. He says he's going to appeal, right? But that immediately gives him a 30 days. But his appeal's got to be granted. Right now, he hasn't got any grounds of appeal. He's got no grounds of appeal at all because he didn't have any defence. Right? He said, well, you didn't go. And his defence was, well, yes, I didn't go. That was his defence. I didn't go. So he's got, right, no grounds for appeal. If they give him an appeal, I'll be very surprised because he's got no grounds for it. Right? But as I said, he's blaming. It's all the woke lot, isn't it? The City of London and the Financial Times. You think, is that all the wokies are? Why would the Financial Times or the City of London care what the hell happens to Steve Bannon? I mean, he's just slinging out mud. Calling, it's Joe Biden, it's Benny Thomas. Benny Thomas is the guy that's just running. He's the chairman of the committee, right? It's Liz Cheney. It's all It's everybody else's fault apart from his. When he could have just gone there and taken the fifth. Right, that's what he could have done. But he said, you know what? No. I'm going to say bollocks to these people. How dare you even subpoena me? So bollocks to you. Fuck you. That's what he said. Right. And now he's been found guilty, and now he's got a minimum. I said he's got a minimum of 30 days, but I think he could get up to 2 years. And I would love to see his ass get thrown in prison for 2 years. Right. That would just make that would make my year. The rest of the year would make the rest of the year if his ass got thrown in prison for the full 2 years, because that would be so funny, right? Because of his own stupidity, right? It's no one else has done this apart from himself. Right, and then so we're staying in America, right, and we move over to Mike Pence, right, who was applauded, right, by the senators and by I think he's still a senator, isn't it, Mike Pence? Is he? I don't know, might be, right, but he was applauded by by probably the Republican senators and the Republican congressmen and congresswomen, right. Now, you're applauding Mike Pence, right, for doing the right thing, but you're trying to trash the January 6th committee. Now, have you ever seen any politics like that? I mean, is that conservative politics wherever you go in the world? Is that what they do? Because that's very similar to what they would do over here in this country. Right, obviously, our politics, right, is not as violent as the Americans' politics because they've got guns. And you see, when you're allowed to carry weapons, right, then your politics can be as violent, right, as if you're in a country, right, who is going through a civil war, because all the motherfuckers have got guns, right? But I'm saying, well, how the hell, right, are you cheering and applauding Mike Pence and then walking out the door, right, being interviewed and trashing the January 6th committee? Because you know what the Republicans are doing? The Republicans want the Democrats to do all the because they don't want to step out of favour with the MAGA crowd. So they're trying to put it all on the Democrats, right? Believe me, the Republicans, right, they're all behind it. They're all behind it. I guarantee it, because none of them want Donald Trump to run to be president again. None of them want that, right? But the problem for the problem they're facing, right, is that they can't openly come out, right, and say, yeah, Donald, because one or two of them who have, right, they get trashed, they get all sorts of death threats and all these type of things. If you see what's happening to like Cassidy Hutchinson, all sorts of death threats she's getting all the time. Even though you've had people like William Barr, right, come out and say, listen, you know what, I told Trump, what, the election wasn't stolen. He knew from all the time, right? You've got people like that coming out and saying these things, right? Now you just had you just had someone last week come out and say, well, he was sat in the TV room watching the whole thing on the TV, enjoying the whole thing. Right, enjoying, right, watching America getting torn down, right? But you know what? It was all his people that was doing it, so he was all good with it, right? But to see them applaud Mike Pence, you say, well, really? I don't know who's following who, right? Whether our conservatives in this country are following the Americans, or the American conservatives are following our conservatives. But they just seem to be all the very, very similar type of people. But the Americans, as I say, the Americans will just do it, with guns. The Lionesses have gone through to the semi-finals. We say well done to the Lionesses, because they had to play Ireland. Oh, yeah. Was Ireland their last game? Might have been. But I know Ireland, I just say to the Irish, to the Irish ladies, yeah, you guys need to put some more training in, right? Because they lost all their games, right? But in saying that, England, I think we won all of ours. you know. But you know, so at the moment there's a lot of pressure on a lot of pressure on the Lionesses, but they are just absolutely a fantastic side. I mean, you know, when you saw how they come back to you know, to win their last game. Yeah, they come back. Yeah, because I was losing. Hold on, I can't remember who they was playing now. And I don't want to speculate, but I can't remember who they was playing. Right, but they come back. Right, you know, and with two really cracking goals. Right, and you know, the goals what I saw them score, yeah, is would certainly be reminiscent of what you would see in the men's league. Right? You know, and before you know, you didn't really see that as much, but now I'm telling you, them girls have got ready. They have got some real skills now, right? You know, when I'm watching what they're doing, you know, and you know, the young lady who scored the goal from just outside the area, right? You know, I'm a striker, and I would have been really proud with that, right? Trust me, I would have been very, very proud with that. And then the other one, you know, she headed it down, and then you know, listen, seriously, that is what you would get watching men's football. And I didn't actually think that you would get to a level of women's football where it's like that. But seriously, they've really pulled it off, and they are really, really good. They are really, really good. The NHS is in the worst crisis ever. Now, this is a direct result of the Tories' last 13 years. Because when the Tories came in, and I checked these numbers this morning, right, 98% of people, right, used to be seen within 4 hours. 98% of people used to be seen within 4 hours, right? And now, you know, you're probably down to about 75% of people who get seen within 4 hours. Right? So you can imagine that everything has just turned around. Because remember, you know, at 98%, right, that's over. Because the people you're talking about that have not been seen in that time, right, are people who have probably registered and then disappeared, and then come back, missed their slot, right? And now, you know, so now it looks like, oh, this person might have waited 6 hours, right? But only because they missed their slot. So now they've got to, you know, they come back, and now they've got to wait another 2 hours or whatever to be seen. Right? So you know, so it looks like that person's waited 6 hours, but they haven't really. But that, right, you know, in the last 13 years, this has all happened. Right? This country has been driven off of the cliff in the last 13 years, and all of this is down to the Tories. Right? They have come in, right? Because remember, right? And they said, "Oh well, you know," because I see Jeremy Hunt was being interviewed this morning, and he was talking about that. He's talking about the NHS, and obviously he's going back to, because it's Ed Balls that was speaking to him, so he's going back to Labour and saying, "Well, Labour left us in such a bad position in 2010," and saying, "Well, really? You're really going to go back there after you've been in power for 13 years now? You've been in power, right? And you're really going to go there and talk about Labour back in 2010, even though waiting times, right, 98% of people would be seen within 4 hours." And Jeremy Hunt, in that time, right, has been the Health Secretary. And he's on there talking about what happened in 2010. How the country was left with no money, and say, well, okay, you was left with no money, yeah, but the services was in a lot better position, right? And they come along and they closed everything down. They said, "Oh no, we don't need that. Oh, we don't need that. What was human beings need that for? Don't need that. We don't need." You realise, right, that NHS is 50,000 nurses down. 12,000 doctors down. That's just nurses and doctors, right? You know, when you're talking about, you know, because remember, you know, you talk about anaesthetists, and you know, and then you got all your auxiliary staff as well, right? Midwives, right? So you know, we're talking, you know, because when, you know, I know it was over 100,000 staff that NHS needed, and that was 4 or 5 years ago, right? So now, right, we must be probably closer to like 120, 130,000 members of staff that the NHS needs. But we won't get them, right? Because well, unless we get someone sensible in who says, you know what, we need right to get ourselves back into the single market or into into the customs union or something, right? But obviously, all of that comes with freedom of movement. Right, and the people of this country are like, well, we're prepared to take our own freedom of movement away so long as there's no more brown and black people come in. We're prepared to lose our own freedom of movement, right? Because we don't want no more foreigners coming here. No more foreigners. Don't want them coming here. Don't want everyone speaking in a foreign language. We don't care how much people are down in our hospitals. We don't care. We're not interested. We don't want no foreigners coming out. And that's the attitude. You see, when you've got that, when you've got that attitude, right? And you see there's so much people who are making serious money in the NHS. Loads of them, absolutely loads of them making serious money, right? And most of them have got titles. They'll be like Sir or Lord. Who have titles, right? With all of these recruitment agencies, right, within the NHS, right? Do you think, right, that you could start up a recruitment service tomorrow, right? Say you've got your hands on 20 nurses, and listen fella, some of them will be men, so you can forget what you're thinking, right? So you've got your hands on 20 nurses now. Then again, it could be somebody could be that, well, they could be gay and well, we wouldn't mind having your hands on 20 male nurses. You disgusting fools, right? You shouldn't be thinking about nurses in that way in the first place. Anywho, right? Say you've got like 20 nurses, for example, right? Do you think you'd have much chance of getting them into the NHS? I mean, it had to be a real freak. Trust me on this, right? Because it's in the first place, right? All of these agencies, they just sweep up all the nurses and the doctors or all the medical staff who want to do these. You've probably got, I don't know, you've probably got maybe four or five of them, right? And you're going to find that they've been working within this industry, in the, supplying nurses and doctors and anaesthetists and midwives to the hospitals, right, for 40, 50 years. You're going to find, right, they've been doing it. Well, maybe they're at 30 years. You're going to find since they started to get all the private money into the NHS and private companies started taking so much money out of the NHS, right? I don't know how long that's been. That's probably been 30 years, right? But I guarantee you that the same companies have been there from day one, right? Hiring staff to the NHS, because you'd probably have to have probably about £10 million, right, to start getting your nurses and doctors into the NHS, because it's so lucrative. It's really lucrative, because you're talking about them working the doctors and because remember it's emergency, so they're getting they'll be getting £30-40 an hour. Obviously they have to pay their own tax, right? The agency doesn't pay their tax; they have to pay their own tax, right? So you're talking about that's what you're talking about, £30-40 an hour, right? So now that the agency, right, will be charging the NHS around £80 an hour for each worker they put in there. That's how that shit works out, right? So that's why you've got people in there who will eat fire to keep those contracts, because those contracts are so lucrative to them, right? But that's where the wastage of money comes in, because you're talking about. I'm just going to give rough numbers, but I would say between £5 and £7 billion a year, right, goes into temporary staff in the NHS, staff that they've hired in. So that's how lucrative you're talking it is. You're talking one hell of a lot of money. But if the NHS was being run correctly, right, everything that they know that they're using on a daily basis, right, they wouldn't need to go to private companies and get them. They could produce those things themselves. I'm sure that's what Renploy used to do. Because remember how the Tories come and they closed down the Renploy factory, right, which used to employ a load of disabled people, right? So the Tories just come and say, we don't need that, just close it down. But I'm sure they used to make things like, crutches and the big shoes when you see people walking out the hospitals with, right? Because all those things, the hospital just says, don't worry about it, just try it away afterwards. Chug it. aluminium, aluminium crutch, chug it, don't worry about it, chug it, right? But all of those things, they should be producing themselves, right? And then they could just say to you, oh well, when you finish with that frame or them crutches, yeah, if you could just drop them back at the hospital for us, right? And they could be sterilised, right, and then reused. But these things, they end up in landfill, or they end up in, like, scrap yards, because they're aluminium, so they end up in scrap yards, right? So so all of this is where all the real wastage comes in the NHS. You've got the you've got the temporary staff recruitment. You've got all the waste. I mean, I'm quite sure, that as a company now, you can produce, like, paracetamol, and and I think that ibuprofen, I'm sure you can produce those things yourself if you really wanted to. Right? And I'm sure the NHS could just say, we're going to set up some factories so that we produce those, because we use so much of them on a daily basis. We're using these things every day. So we might as well just supply it to ourselves, and that way we can employ more people in this country. But the government don't want to do that anyway. The government don't want to employ people because they look at the British people as being lazy, right, and don't want to work, and then they don't want to pay pensions, they don't want to pay holiday pay, they don't want to pay sick pay. All the duvet days. What you say? This is what happens in this country. The people of this country have fucked up all of these services because they, working for the council or something like that, because the council would allocate you this amount of, like, sick days every year, right? So the people of this country are like, well, I get allocated these sick days, so I'm going to take them, right? And and then so you got all your duvet days, and and then where all your people are, well, I'm working 9 until 3:30, and all these things that so all of these things have made the British worker seem like, what, I don't really like to work, right? And that's the reason why we had so many different minorities come to this country, because these motherfuckers over here was lazy. Right, but in saying that, now, right, you have, like, you have British Asians and Black Asians who are in the same position, right? They've grown up in this society, right? But they haven't got the same work ethic, right, as people who have come from my generation, who was born in this country, right? Their work ethic will be much more like the indigenous, right? Because that's what they are. They remember, a lot of their parents born here too, right? So so their parents will be indigenous just like them, right? And so they can have that lazy flex. But if you come from a family like mine, right, that was never going to be an option for you anyway. Right? That was it was never going to be an option, because my mum done, like, X amount of, like, part-time jobs all the time, and my dad was 6 days a week. Right? So everyone in my family has got that same ethic to go out there and do to go out there and just earn your own money or whatever, right? So but the people of this country, there's a reason why there was so much, right, ethnic minorities come over to do these jobs, because they're damn lazy. That's why we've got, like, the worst ever NHS figures. Crime numbers across the board are up, highest ever. I suppose that's what happens when you've got a major shortage of police officers. But you see, people are thinking to themselves, oh well, they're going to do something about it. They're not going to do anything about it. That's why they've got all the camera infrastructure, right? Because police officers cost too much money. They're expensive. So police officers are very expensive. They're not cheap. Right, because you're talking about, you're probably talking around 40 grand for each police officer a year, right? And then plus their overtime. Right. There's a lot of expenses. That they can claim for as well. But then you're talking about sick pay, which is going to be pretty good, right? Because a lot of them might get injured on the job, right? And then pensions, fantastic pensions again, really good pensions. And if you leave at rank of PC, right? You do your 30 years or whatever. You leave at the rank of a PC, you get about 110 grand leaving. and then obviously you've got your pension on top of that. Right. So if you think they're going to just recruit, maybe Labour might, because remember, the Tories always say how Labour are reckless with the spending. But remember, they might be reckless with the spending, but they're spending the money on the people of this country. They're not turning it out and spending it and giving it to their friends and donors, right? So the crime numbers, right, are obviously under Boris Johnson and under the Tories, worst ever. But then, as I said, all of these things, I foresaw these things. When Boris Johnson when I heard Boris Johnson was first wanted to be prime minister, I was like, well, that's just a joke. That's ridiculous. And it was. We've had over 15,000 migrants cross the channel so far this year, right? And we're just really hitting the summer, right? So how much more is going to come over, up till what, September, October? Because it looks like we're going to have, the weather might be good up till the beginning of October, right? So just imagine, and now those damn Rwandans have turned around and said, or it could be, we are only going to take 200. So what? How dare you? At £120 million. If they gave me some of that money, I'd find myself in Rwanda. If they just did because I don't know. But let's just work out. It's probably going to be about 200 grand each. That's what you're probably talking. 120 million. Probably about 200 grand each. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to work it out. I ain't got my calculator. Right, but let's just say 200,000. 200,000, yeah? I'd find myself in Rwanda. If the government said to me, well, we'll give you £200,000 to go to Rwanda, and you don't darken our door ever again, I'd be like, where's the plane? Where is the aeroplane? Right? Where that plane is at? Right? You're joking. Seriously, these people are under some joke business, right? But the Rwandans have said, no. We only will take 200. We don't want no more than that. And Rishi Sunak, right, the stick insect, right, and pencil neck thin Lizzie Truss are both saying, "Oh, it's a fantastic," because they've got to please these people. Do you know what I mean? Even the Asian guys got to say, "Oh, well, yeah, we definitely want to be sending black and brown people to Rwanda." But just think to yourself, seriously. 200 of them, because it was started off, it was 500, and I said at 500, I said, something, right? That's even at 500, right? Imagine if you've got 15,000 come over on boats. I can guarantee you that I can find you 500 in that lot, right, that have no right at all to be in this country. I can do that. So everyone's going to be like finding 200 people to go. But they're still going to make a big thing of it, even though they might not pull it off. But they've still got to make it look like, right? But say, seriously, if you're a Tory voter, you've got to look and say, hold on a minute, hold on, whoa, Nelly. Is it not the case, right, that we've got over 15,000 come over, and you're talking about sending 200? Are you having a laugh here? Are you joking here? You're just going to send two? It's like, that's not a plan. That's not a plan, is it? Right? That's like you coming out of the desert, right, and someone giving you a can of Coke this size and a Jacob's cream cracker. So you're going to give me a dry cracker, right, and a drink that's going to dry me out even more. Seriously, right? This is just like, it's unbelievable what these people can get away with, right? There's over 15,000 people. Those are the migrants who they've caught, because quite a lot have come over on boats, right, that haven't been detected. They say, well, we're going to send them 200, and none of these Tories, all these Tory idiots, right, and all these red wall idiots who want this, I look at it, none of them are questioning it. They're all just oh yeah, it's a good idea. Seriously, You know, you're talking about that's not even one. That's not that's more people come over, right? In a 12-hour space, more people have come over than that. You say, well, what are you doing? But you see, the easiest thing to be, because there's the thing's staring right in the face there, and that simply would be, right, to set up a centre in France, a processing centre, and then they could say to those people, don't come over that way. If you come over that way, we're sending you straight to Rwanda. Even I would agree with that if you've got a processing centre in France. Even I would agree with that. But I know that the whole thing is just there to wind people up. It's just been set there so that people get really wound up by it. Boris Johnson has said mission accomplished. And left by saying hasta la vista. Mission accomplished, Boris Johnson. Really? Okay then. Is there going to be a massive is there going to be a massive consumer strike? Oh right, yeah. There's going to be a massive consumer strike on fuel bills. You've got people like Martin Lawrence saying to people, Martin Lewis saying to people, don't pay your fuel bills. I know what I'm saying. I'm saying, don't be so fucking stupid, right? I pay pre-motherfucking pay. How am I going to get involved in this? Right? I want to call these people and say, come put a meter in. Come put so I could get involved and say, well, we're going to do mass non-payment. I'm in on that. Yeah, that's what we're looking at, a mass non-payment. But Emmanuel Macron has called for an EU fleet of aircraft to help with wildfires. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to get it. And then we're going to be looking over and saying, when we've got our wildfires, and saying, well, can't you come and help? And they're going to say, well, no, because you are no longer in the EU. So this is an EU thing that we're setting up, right? So that when we do have wildfires, right, we've got aeroplanes that can come from all different type of EU countries to go and help in that country. Well, that's what they're going to set up. And we are not going to be in it. But obviously we didn't want to be, so. And we're just coming to the end of the heat wave, and it looks like that we've got that we're going to have strikes coming up any day soon. We're going to have strikes coming up. So, I'm quite sure the people of this country knew exactly what they was voting for when they voted to punch themselves in the face, right, and then shoot themselves in both feet. UK musicians are not being booked for festivals within the EU. Our numbers are down by over 50%, and I would bloody well know about that because I've had no bloody bookings for anything, right? That's any of the festivals that I would get booked for on a normal basis within the EU. We're just not getting booked for none of them no more because it's just too much hard. For the promoters, it's just too much hard work. Do you know what I mean? I spoke to a German promoter like a couple of weeks ago. Do you know what I mean? He was just saying to me, listen, there's paperwork and that to fill out for you guys, and I'm not prepared to do it. Do you know what I mean? I said, well, send the paperwork to me and I'll do it. He said, do you speak German? How fluent is your German? I said, not bloody. Do you know what I mean? So he's just like, we're not booking. We're not really going to book. I mean, they're booking, like, obviously really big artists are getting booked, but the smaller artists, we're just not getting anything. Do you know what I mean? It's just not happening. Once upon a time it used to be pretty good, but not anymore. And there is no post-Brexit bonanza for the City of London, or for the UK, or for the EU. There's no post-Brexit bonanza. And my friends, this is my last video for quite a while now. Well, I'm just taking. As I said, it's the end of the season. Yeah, I'm gonna be off for a few weeks, and believe me, right, my headspace can really do with it because having to speak about these people, right, these people are, when I tell you they're useless, right? Useless is not the word. If you can find another word, right, I think probably put fucking useless. right? In front, because all of these people, right? You know, just look at all of these politicians, and none of them have done any good for us. And I'm telling you that having all of that in your headspace can't be a good thing at all. Just can't be a good thing at all. So, my friends, I will see you again. As I said, I'm going to probably pop up and maybe do a video around my birthday, which is August the 15th. So I'm probably going to pop up and do a birthday, maybe a little birthday one around then. Just depending on what's going on in the world. And then I might pop up and do one or just a few short videos every now and again. But I'm going to be back to my normal videos, early in September. So my friends, this, my friends, is By Any Means Necessary. I'm signing out for a little while, right? But I'll see you in season 3. I think that's what it is. See you, my friends. I'm out of here.